Hello, welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports and another edition of Cycling 101. This is a series of videos where I hope to help you understand a little bit more about what's going on when you watch a professional cycling race. And hopefully it helps with your cycling IQ. This is the third video thus far. We'll continue to do more. And it's actually the third video focusing on breakaways. Now, you might ask, why so many videos on breakaways? Well, because there's a lot going on. And so you need to find some of the things when you watch the race. You can find some of the things that I talk about here. You can see them happening, and it'll help you understand, why are these guys and girls out there suffering for 4 or 5 hours ahead of the peloton when they could be in the back chilling? Okay, before we go any further, if you would please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when I've posted another video. By the way, we're up over 413 subscribers, so thank you very much for all of you who have subscribed. And the next milestone has always been getting to that 500 subscriber mark, and let's get to that. So if you have been watching these videos, please subscribe, and well, thank you for watching. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is about 5 or 6 things about the benefits. Like, why do these riders go into a breakaway? What are those benefits? So the first thing is, let's say you're good at TTs, which is time trials, but you're not a very good sprinter. Mentioned this in a previous video, but sometimes you'll end up in the breakaway with 3 or 4 or 5 other riders, and you are very good at time trialing. And this is typically where you can hold you can sustain a very high effort for a set period of time. You can basically put everything out of your mind and hold a sustained effort for a very good period of time. Maybe there's an opportunity now with your 4 or 5 other riding breakaway mates that the stage is going to end in a certain way where you can then break away from the breakaway and head out maybe 5, 10, 20 kilometers from the line and just beat everyone else that was in the breakaway with you. Or vice versa. Maybe you're a sprinter and everyone in the group is pretty good at time trialing, or maybe you got a climber or 2 in there. Well, you know that your chances have improved significantly of winning the stage, because remember again, what is the primary reason to get in a breakaway? The primary reason is to win the race. Okay, so number 2, when you are in the breakaway, well, we'll talk about that also, but it is much easier for you to be properly fueled and hydrated in a breakaway. So as the breakaway forms, if there's about a minute gap between the riders in the breakaway and the peloton, then a team car can now get behind that breakaway and stay with that breakaway. So you've got 6 or 7 riders. You're going to have, oh, by the way, this is what I was going to say earlier. Each team has at least 2 team cars. And so one will stay back with the peloton because there's probably 7 of your riders there and only 1 in the breakaway. And then one team car will go up with the breakaway, have the spare bikes and have the spare stuff, and of course all of their fueling goodies and all their bottles. So it's much easier if you're sitting in a breakaway with 5, 6, 7 riders. Team car just rolls up, you get your stuff, you get back in your breakaway group. If you're back in the Peloton, if you have 170, 180 riders in that Peloton, one of those riders has to go all the way back, so past the Peloton, then has to find their team car, and each team car is set behind the Peloton based on how well the team is doing in their team rankings at the time. And your team car could be 15 cars back. You got to load up with all the bottles. You got to go through that whole 15 team cars, get to the Peloton, get all the way to the front of the Peloton, find your riders, right? So it could be a while before you get fresh bottles and more nutrition and stuff like that. You also can get stuff along the side of the road. You'll see the sauniers. We're going to get into the glossary in a different video as well. So suffice it to say, if there's only 5 or 6 of you in the Breakaway and your team car is literally right behind you, it's easier to be fueled and hydrated during, a 200-kilometer stage. Okay. Next thing is, and same thing with, you get a flat or you have a bike issue. Your team car is literally just behind you. Boom, swap out the wheel, swap out the bike, and you're back up and running. When you've got a 4 or 5 minute gap between you and the Breakaway, that's plenty of time to swap out a bike and still stay in the Breakaway. Number 3, this is an opportunity to avoid a lot of the crashes in the Peloton. You've got so many riders. You've got narrow roads. You've got maybe, a lot of different interests with these other teams, and the pace picks up and people get to the front and you get dropped and you try to get back up there. And there's constant, they call it the washing machine. You get this constant movement of all of the riders. And you're fighting for position all the time. Well, if you're in the Breakaway, there's really only 5 or 6 of you, or 10 or 20, and you are just continuously rotating in a pace line. So that's it. You don't really have, it's hard to crash when there's only 3 or 4 riders around you. Much easier to crash if you're in the main Peloton. Okay, another benefit of being in the in the Breakaway, is that the effort is much more steady. Let's take, for example, a Belgian classic race. You're on these wide roads, maybe 2, 3, 4 lanes wide, and you're about to hit one of the climbs. Well, the pace is going to be full on to get to the base of that climb, because that climb is typically 1 lane wide. Sometimes you could barely get cars up it, right? So 4, 5, 6, 8 riders wide has to narrow down to about 3. So the pace between each one of these Belgian, cobbled climbs, or, steep climbs, the pace is going to be really, really high. Acceleration, get into the climb, and then it backs off. The climb is enough of a separator to, the cream rises to the top, as they say. If you're riding in the Breakaway, your pace is your pace. You basically keep it the same. If the time gap is starting to close up, the Peloton's starting to get closer to you, you pick up the pace a little bit and you keep your distance, your time gap to the Peloton. But that's pretty steady effort, as opposed to the constant changes of speed, rate of speed in the Peloton. All right, the last one we're going to cover today, just so this video doesn't get too long, is descending. When you're riding in the Breakaway, again, 4, 5, 6, 10 riders, it's much safer for you to choose the proper line, to choose the proper race line, and descend, because you've only got a few riders around you. If you're in the peloton, a lot of times you will be forced off of your line because you're going down with 180 other riders. So it's very important to be able to descend quickly and safely, and the Breakaway allows you to do that. You can choose your proper line, you can choose the correct line, and not much stress there. So that's all we're going to cover today. I'm trying to keep these videos to about 4 or 5 points so that they don't drag on too long, and I don't lose your attention. All right, so hopefully these points make sense to you, and please drop comments below. I would really like to know what is it that you don't know or understand about Breakaway, so that I can then add it to my little hit list and we can talk about it. So that's all for today. I appreciate all of you who have subscribed to the channel and watch my videos, and we will see you up the road.